point of view, but heaven forbid looking at something like sports betting. I think if you see in the UK, the legislations are slightly different. You actually bet on live sport and you're fully engaged with that. And I think that kind of model will start to get over here. The biggest challenge with all of this is the commercial viability of some of these kind of technologies, and ultimately where does that kind of cost lie and who pays for that, whether it be the advertiser, whether it be the broadcaster. So I think that's one big question. We're talking about a lot of exciting things, but the commercial viability of all of these needs to be kind of locked up before we begin.
I think, it's interesting. We're a startup, so we've got about 30,000 customers today, but growing very quickly, so we don't have that same 2.4 million opportunity to monetize. So we're taking a very conservative, and you could argue slightly arrogant approach to advertising, which is we'll select who we want to work with on a transactional basis, because you're trying to demonstrate to the customers you have a relevant product that's appropriate for them. And just introducing more and more transactional capabilities is not going to build affinity and help us achieve our objectives. So obviously, a pay-per-view movie is a classic example that it's relevant, people will do it, and you get that transaction. A logical extension of that is that they'll watch trailers for in cinema now features. That's a value on the TV. So actually to integrate so we can remember which cinema you live next to, what the session times, watch the trailer, buy the ticket, send it to your mobile phone. That's a value add. Then the next one is, do you go to RSVP and say if someone selected 5 people they might be interested in seeing, now they want to watch the video on their big screen or into a domain where you're looking at the house. So what we're trying to do is to identify the transactions that are actually going to add to the customer experience and just build out one by one. I think we'll end in a far different place than we expect. But what we don't want to do is create a shopping mall on the TV because we know customers don't want that.
I think that's where the second screen comes in too. You may be watching to use your Augusta down the 14th with Tiger Woods, and you may on your second screen in a link sense, a bunch of people watching that, but you're the one who wants to go and find out which balls he's hitting. So you can then exit off and do commerce that way. It's less, for 2 reasons, less likely to happen on the screen. One is the whole interaction of what device you're using. If it's a Connect kind of device where you're using your hand gestures to point around the screen, it's easier, but it's disrupting the viewing experience for everybody else. So I think it's more the second screen that is the driving device.
I think what we have seen, and just from our own experience with interactive advertising through the kind of set-top box at the moment, and that's for hitting the red button either to book a test drive, to get an e-brochure on a kind of product. When we get down to a IP-driven set-top box, that opportunity to book a test drive will go straight through to a potential Toyota microsite. So you'll enter into a much more richer environment from a retail point of view. That could also be through a tablet device as well, but that's where interactive advertising could potentially go and probably will go. For us, it's been enormously successful, and that will be the next iteration of, I suppose, heading down a full T-commerce route.
Okay. I'm just going to add one. We're all going to have to figure out the billing relationship through this transactional volume, because the one thing people don't want to do is every time they do something on the TV to enter a new credit card to a new store and have their details out there. So solving the single bill and having the parental controls and the security and all of that is going to be absolutely a critical part of enabling this sort of thing. One of the reasons as Fetch we've partnered with the ISPs is because we truly value their billing relationship. We can sell 2 tickets to the cinema tonight on the bill, the telco bill. Probably they wouldn't want us selling 2 Robbie Williams tickets at $200 a piece on the telco bill. But having those micro payments available through a single transaction is going to be a key part of the puzzle for everyone in this space.
To each of you, I'd like to sort of get you to tell us what you think TV will look like in 2020. How will we be watching and engaging with television?
I'll go last. I want to hear the answer first.
Don't all shout at once.
Don't profess to certainly have the answer, but what I will say is television as it sits today is in great shape. Television audiences kind of globally, locally are up, and the devices, the technology, the search functionality that's sending us down this path will only strengthen television and the power of television. I think that's certainly great for me in television. I think in 2020 I'll still be in television, hopefully have a decent role in it, but television is in great shape, and it's only going to get better with these technologies.
I think we need to redefine what we mean by television. I think if we mean television in the way content is delivered today, that changes dramatically. So I don't think about television. I think of, okay, I will come into my home. I will have a either on my tablet or on my screen. It will know my preferences. If I walk into the room, there'll be a hierarchy in my house so I'll be the last, of course, but there'll be a hierarchy of who gets to watch what. I walk in. I'll use hand gestures, as you can see with the Connect devices today. They do it in games. I'll drive the device with hand gestures. It will find a bunch of things, a mix of what my friends are watching, what the algorithms say I used to watch, I like to watch, and it'll be presented across a variety of streams, whether it's IPTV or whether it's off Foxtel or something else that Fetcher's got or whatever. It'll present to me in a very easy format. And I think we will detach ourselves from the model that we think of today, where it's just sort of, money tied to a particular way content's delivered. We do that because it's easier. I think it becomes harder for people who are monetizing, but far more performance-based and a richer experience for the advertisers and for the consumer.
We do need a new name for television.
You do, yeah. It helps certain industries continue, but doesn't actually present what the... And I would also, to be semi-controversial, would argue that, in fact, whether people are actually watching more television today than they have in the past, in the way we think of television as being free-to-air and Fox. So I think it's hard. I'm a lot older than everyone in the room, other than John. But had to be someone. But it's hard to imagine. I've seen the curves. I've seen the curves of the growing hours of free-to-air, and it's just weird because I look around and everyone I know is on iPads or on their computer or doing stuff, and yet we see these numbers. And I think, as you mentioned, when we get the metrics to come through from the boxes and stuff, I think we'll see a step function in what we think of as where the audiences really are. Because I don't think we're getting necessarily a good proxy set of data today. I would suggest that might be the case.
So I think what I'd kind of echo is a couple of people's expectations around a screen that is sort of connected to the internet as we think of it today, that we can access lots of different content. I'm looking forward to being able to sort of wave at it to sort of get what I want and not to find the remote where it's hidden down the back of the sofa. And to touch on the point that Mark made around content, where if you look at the kind of content that's being produced globally, now there's some really, really great high quality content that's being made to be watched in sort of 40-minute to an hour sections and is actually driving kind of big audiences globally watching that, and advertisers want to be appearing around that and they'll want to be appearing within that content as well.
So just an interesting sideline to that, you see now both YouTube and Hulu are now actually commissioning their own content, long-form content, which is
make it commercially viable.
Exactly, which is the beginning of this whole change of the content relationship, which is kind of what HBO did. If you think about going back a while.
One comment, it always interests me. You go to the Consumer Electronics Show or you attend conferences, and people are talking about 2 years from now, 4 years from now, 5, 6, and how much things will change. And then you actually go back and you look at what were the highest grossing concerts last year? Is Bon Jovi, the Eagles. If you say, what's the TV shows that are on TV? It's Young Talent Time, Big Brother's coming back. We are creatures of habit and familiarity, and things do change, but they don't change as quickly as you think. And the more they change, the more they come back. I know I'll be wearing bell-bottom cords sometime soon. So
that could be just you, though.
So I think to say that everything's going to change is probably incorrect. There'll be more devices. Time shifting will come into play. But people still want to be watching the same things as mass audiences because TV is a connecting, they want to be able to talk. Sports will still be popular. News will still be popular. There's going to be more things in common with what we're doing now than you would think. So I always try to do two things: predict what's going to change, but also predict what's going to stay the same. And no matter how many features we add to our service, the consumer behavior is very similar the day before you add the new feature to the day after, because people are creatures of habit. So I just highlight that if Richard Wilkins is still hosting the Today Show in 20 years, don't be surprised. It's look at the celebrities that are popular now.
No one may be watching. That's the only thing.
Well, I mean, that's been fantastic. Just if there's anybody got any questions, you can ask the guys, obviously, afterwards, or also send you questions on Connected TV, and the guys will come back and answer them. Thank you for a really fascinating discussion. It's just a huge area. I mean, I've had more meetings in the last 2 months about this than any other time about televisions in 5 years of doing B&T. So obviously it's a huge area that's getting a lot of attention. So please thank Daniel, Scott, Jonathan, Mark.